And we are live here on this Thursday evening following a 8-5 victory for our New York Mets right here on the Mets postgame show. A awesome series win in Chicago against the Chicago Cubs. Nick, how you doing?
Hey, always feeling good after a Mets win. Let's go, Mets. We control our destiny. Get a couple wins down in Miami, and we should be good.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is nighttime. I do have to keep my voice down a little bit, so I do apologize about that. You know how it goes, but I appreciate everyone being here in the live chat. Please make sure to spam those W's in the live chat. I absolutely love to see all of you all. James is in the live chat here, spamming the W's. We got Victor, we've got Ray, we've got so many people. Gina's getting hype in the chat. Metsflix, Jody. Oh my goodness, everyone is showing out. Pure Adrenaline Sports is in the house, and it is awesome to see. Before we fully get into this post game recap, make sure to subscribe and hit the thumbs up on this stream. Subscribe to the channel, and don't only subscribe to myself, but you've seen him on here recapping Mets games plenty of times so far this season. Make sure to go subscribe to Nick as well over on YouTube at Independent Nick. This was a game where Nolan McLean came in and dominated early on. And it was kind of a weird start, Nick. From start to finish, we know about the 11 strikeouts. We know what he did in the first 5 innings, and things started to fall apart a little bit, especially with the long ball as we got into that 6th inning, as he was chasing that 6th inning. But just take me through, right? Because we've seen the inconsistencies of the Mets starters. We saw what Jonah Tong did last night on the way to a 10-3 loss in game 2. We saw what David Peterson did in the first couple of innings, in that in the game 1 where it was a miraculous comeback for this Mets team to help set up this series win. But just take me through the differences and what you see when Nolan McLean takes the mound versus everybody else seemingly in this rotation. It was special and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely to start. And the thing that McLean does that separates him from the rest of our starters is he attacks the strike zone. And obviously, he does it in a variety of different ways. He has many different pitches that he can get over with strikes. We've all seen the overlays of, two of his different pitches and the way that they move. Good luck if you're in the batter's box and you're there, trying to make contact or, trying to get solid contact to get him. But even him, when he faltered, there were some walks involved. I'm pretty sure he walked the leadoff guy that inning, and that's something that everybody. If you go back and you look at McLean's line, I think Gary commented on it during the game. It's a crazy line. It's a line that you're not going to see very often. When you have a guy pitch 5.1 innings, give up 5 hits, 5 earned runs, and have 11 Ks. It's just you don't see that very often. But he went out there, he was able to get the job done at least for 4 innings, and then we were able to go out there and score some runs for this guy, which as we know, it's not just been this year. It's going back in Mets history. Some of our best pitchers, we don't always give them the run support that they deserve. And then, as we know, things start to get real tight this time of the season when you're in a race. And I love his moxie. I love the way that he, shows some fire and some emotion on the mound. The opposite of a guy like David Peterson, who I think it was about a week ago, I was on here talking about how he would definitely be one of the starters, if we make it to the playoffs. And now he has totally got himself out of the circle of trust. And the real question, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go on, you hope to have some confidence in Sproat in this next game, but in those next 2 games, which, by the way, the Marlins have lined up their best pitchers. They had a chance to stay in the overall race today, but instead they put out Contra to our series. So clearly it's a big deal to them, even though we're going to have more Mets fans down there in that stadium. And, it's going to be really interesting what Manaya does and what these other starting pitchers do, because McLean has been the best pitcher on this team now for well over a month. He would be the #1 starter in the playoffs, no matter how, even if it didn't align that way, that's what he would be. And he has shown himself to be the alpha of this Mets staff right now and probably going into next season.
He just has that dog in him. Like every single time he steps up onto the mound, did you see the way he reacted after Brett Baty's barehanded play? I mean, that is a type of pitcher that loves the defense backing him, and he will make sure, to go ahead and congratulate the guys making plays behind him. And the slider today, I mean, we know the arsenal that he has and the pitch mix that he has, but the arsenal and the slider in particular in that arsenal, lethal, filthy, deadly. I don't know what you want to say about it, but I was watching that movement from that slider from Nolan McLean, and it was just mesmerizing to watch. Now, I understand that he did have his fair share of issues with the long ball today. I think he gave up, what, 3 home runs to contribute to the 5 earned runs. It was a really productive and really complete start until that very last inning that, forced Mendoza's hand to go out there and get him. And we'll talk about the bullpen here in just a second, because that's also an important thing that I want to bring up, and how they're kind of gelling right now. But yeah, Nolan McLean, I just love the statement that Ron made. No, unfortunately, he cannot pitch again in the next 3 days in Miami. That's the most unfortunate thing about it, because you are 100% correct. The Miami Marlins and the broadcasters, after they lost against the Phillies tonight, were stating it. They have an opportunity, even though they are officially eliminated as of tonight from wildcard contention, to play spoilers at home, kind of a road away game or road home game, because that Mets fans are going to be piling in that Miami ballpark. But they have a chance to play spoilers, and they are definitely trying to do so by lining up their 3 best starters. Alcantara Friday, I think Perez is going to go Saturday for them, and then Sunday is going to be Edward Cabrera. So this the Mets magic number officially right now is still 3 games. The Reds did take care of business by the skin of their teeth, a robbery of a home run, a game-tying home run in that 9th inning to secure the Reds' victory. But the Pirates did a lot of justice for the New York Mets by taking a series in Cincinnati, and the Dodgers took care of business against the Diamondbacks as well, which pushes the Diamondbacks back 2 games of the Mets for the NL wild card as well. So that is the wild card picture. But I love what you said, man. This offense, and we have to talk about the lineup differences, the lineup difference in what we saw yesterday versus today. 2 lefties on the mound. Yesterday, it was Boyd, who looked fantastic against this Mets lineup. And then today, it was Shota Imanaga. And by the way, this offense just hitting absolute rockets off of Shota Imanaga all game long. Whether they were rewarded with a hit or not, Vientos was robbed a couple of times. Lindor hits one to the deepest part of the ballpark. He could have had a multi-home run game. They were hitting rockets. If you look at the exit velo off of Shota Imanaga, and that's what I like to see. Just really competent swings. But the one guy that had and did a lot of damage in this game with one swing of the bat that should have been playing yesterday, and I hope Carlos Mendoza doesn't even think about anything for the rest of the season going into the playoffs, is Brett Baty. Keep Brett Baty's bat in the lineup. And, the numbers going into this series against lefties for Brett Baty weren't even that spectacular. I think before last night, it was like, 620 OPS, 233 average against lefties this season. But he is swinging a night and day different bat right now this season in general, clearly with his 18 home runs and 745 OPS. But he's also swinging a better in general than Mark Vientos. Now, I don't want to take away a great game from Mark Vientos today, because he did have a couple of really good swings. And how about that play in the 1st inning? First of all, Gary Cohen knows all these weird rules about baseball. I had no idea that that was even a thing.
No
That's
matter
new
how
for
long
me.
you watch baseball, no matter how long you watch it, there will be a rule that comes out of nowhere that you're like, wait, what? And of course, Gary knows it immediately. Hey, that was fantastic.
Of course. Of course. But who also knew the rule was Francisco Lindor, who ended up, basically as soon as the play happened and they originally called an out, Lindor's like, no, 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 no. Go back there and actually get this right. So clearly, with Francisco Lindor taking off the way he did, he knew the rule as well. So that's really heads up baseball right there by Francisco Lindor. Just a weird way to start the game, honestly. And that's
Hold
why
on,
I
hold on,
love
hold on, hold on,
baseball.
hold on. Lindor initially when he ran, he looked as if he didn't look like he knew he was going to be awarded that base
I
because
thought that
he
he
took
did.
off like he was tagging up. Like, I mean, he just ended up being out by a mile, but I thought that he was just trying to be aggressive right there. And I think either something triggered, like whether it be somebody in the dugout or he just, kind of came back to him once he got down there that actually, hold on, with, but his initial reaction, I thought was, it seemed like from the naked eye, like he didn't know that he was going to be awarded the base.
Because he did have to tag up. No matter how that shook out, he had to tag up. But I think he didn't
Hmm.
see when he was tagging up, he didn't actually
Okay.
see originally that Dansby flipped the third baseman the ball. And I think that, once he figured that out and once everybody was saying it, then he started to go back and be like, okay, I should be safe no matter what. But yeah, he originally did have to tag. And I'm only assuming when he's tagging up, his back is to that play anyways, and he didn't really see the flip. But I had no idea that was a rule, and I agree with you. Like, no matter how long I've played this game for a long time, everybody I'm sure in here in this chat, you as well, knows this game, inside and out. I didn't know that was a thing. And so that was pretty cool to see. And it ended up benefiting the Mets. It wouldn't have been as cool, but maybe still cool if the callers reversed and it goes the Cubs way. So you know what though, let's talk about this offense. And first of all, Brett Baty, the managerial decision yesterday versus today, what do you make of that change, and how do you see the Mets playing this? Because McNeil sits on the bench tonight. Brett Baty's in, the lineup playing third base, and Vientos's defense last night was absolutely horrible, which also played a factor. I thought going into this game, I know Rob was part of the pregame stream. I didn't get a chance to join him on that pregame stream, or else I would have talked about, this very situation on that stream. But what goes into that kind of decision in your opinion? Because if it was me, if I was Mendoza, looking at the way that Vientos has been swinging the bat and the overall numbers, which have not been good over the past couple of weeks by and large, coupled with the fact that Mendoza basically in the post game yesterday said those are routine plays and we expect anybody at that position to make those plays, and Vientos just didn't. I would have thought his ass was going to be on the bench today. But Mendoza goes with him again. You're going to have this continuous decision if you're Mendoza, if you want to prioritize Vientos or Marte as your DH moving forward. I think at this point, the home run potential, the power potential, gap to gap potential is clearly in favor of Vientos if he figures it out. But I think that Marte, excuse me, with the way that he's been swinging the bat all in all this season, I'd give him the benefit of the doubt and I'd give him the nod a little bit more than Vientos. What do you think?
So, I mean, oh my God, how much the tides have turned. You and your glowing praise for Brett Baty. I mean, there was a time where, you said this guy wasn't a major league player, and I was with you. A lot of Mets fans felt that way. He felt like a quadruple A player, but the thing about Brett Baty is the defense, man. The kid can pick it, and to me, I have a little bit more of an old school approach and an old school mindset. I can't have a guy over there in the hot corner or really anywhere in my infield who is a massive liability defensively, because those mistakes, late in seasons, you can pinch hit for a guy late in the game if it's, the right situation. But we've seen Brett Baty show an ability to hit left-handers. Obviously, he had the biggest hit tonight. And how many, if you've like you said, grown up playing baseball, you coach base, I coach baseball now, you watch baseball, how often do we see the guy make the sparkling play and then immediately get the big hit the next half inning? I mean, it never fails. It always happens. And he makes just an absolutely beautiful play with the bare hand. Like you said before, McLean's reaction is amazing. And then he comes up and goes Apo Taco for a 3-run home run over the Ivy. I just thought that Brett Baty, had a great game. And I'm not one to play the results and, criticize the manager. I thought yesterday, I said, with the way that Vientos has been swinging the bat recently, I gotta go Baty here. I gotta go Baty here. And like you said, against the lefty, against a righty in this same situation, you gotta have McNeil playing somewhere. If he's either playing somewhere or he's the DH, he's there. And I think that Vientos ends up being the odd man out. But I think that Mendoza remembers what happened last year in the playoffs, and he doesn't want to go away from this guy. He wants this guy to find it because he realizes that if he gets hot, he can carry you for, not just a game, but a series. So I get continuing to trot this guy out there, but he cannot play third base for the rest of the, for these last 3 games, period. And then when we get into the playoffs, you just cannot have a guy over there making mistakes like that. That can totally change the entire outlook of a game when he doesn't make a play. And that's the thing. Yesterday he had, the clear error, but there was a player or a play earlier in the game I was watching with my son, and I'm like, yo, Baty gets to that ball. It was a high chopper that got past him, and I'm like, yo, Baty gets to that ball. And we've seen Baty show not only a little bit more consistency at the plate this year. I mean, he really has established himself as a legitimate big leaguer this year, and I think that he's the Mets starting third baseman of the future, and he's shown himself to be a little bit clutch as well. And baseball is one of those games where in other sports, clutches late in the game. Sometimes a clutch hit in baseball can come in the third inning. Where it's just like, hey, it's 2 outs now. We've blown an opportunity where we've only gotten 1 run or something like that. But there's some, there's some ducks out there on the pond, and a guy comes up and makes a big hit right there, and it changes the entire outlook. Like I always say, it's a game of moments, and Brett Baty has shown himself to be up to the task in some of those moments.
You're absolutely right, and that's spot on because if Brett Baty doesn't hit that home run, I mean, I'm not saying the Mets don't score in that inning, but the complexion of this game changes with the way that the Cubs were able to rally against McLean in that fifth inning. And, maybe we're talking about a 1 or 2 run differential instead of a 3 run differential. And that's what ended up being, the difference in this ball game here. But yeah, absolutely a huge hit. And you are also spot on. I have to eat my words on Brett Baty and what I said about him because you know what? I'm never going to root against somebody in this organization if they're wearing a Mets uniform. Everyone has their thoughts and opinions on who could be the future of a certain position. Brett Baty, at the beginning of this season, didn't really have that kind of, he didn't really show that potential. He wasn't showing that potential. And that's why there was a platoon, set out there to see who would be the future, whether it's Vientos, I think Acuna got a couple games over there as well, show what he had. And Brett Baty really took that personally. And I like that. And I love that actually. And so now we can start to be a little bit more confident in him as the future third baseman of this team moving forward to next season and beyond, especially he's showing some pop, right? 18 home runs, just shy of 20. That's the sweet spot of where we all thought Brett Baty would be at with the long ball when he first came up. And so I'm very happy this is the first step that I think that Brett Baty has taken in a pretty respectable major league career ahead of him. It was a slow start, and hopefully it only continues to get better moving forward. So, absolutely, let's get into the box score here just a second, because like I said, this Mets offense was just mashing the baseball against Shota Imanaga. Lindor with the home run, could have definitely had 2. Soto actually had a very quiet night, 0 for 5, 2 strikeouts. He did not look comfortable against any of the lefties, that the Cubs had to offer tonight. Whether it was, Pomeranz, Rogers, Imanaga, didn't really matter. Soto didn't look comfortable. Vientos' 0 for 4 isn't really telling of how he actually swung the bat. He did get the RBI with the weird play early on in the game, but Brandon Nimmo, Brett Baty, and Tyrone Taylor. Big play Tyrone Taylor. Obviously, yesterday, we know what he brings to the table defensively. He gets, the game started in a crazy way in the early goings yesterday with a 95-mile-per-hour strike to home plate to get the runner out at home. The Mets did lose the game, so that was all for naught, I guess. But this is a guy. This is a guy. And Gary said on the broadcast, no chance anybody else is patrolling center field other than Tyrone Taylor to end this season in this next series, the 3 games that we have left, and also in the playoffs should the Mets make it there. This guy, Tyrone Taylor, he did the same thing last season where he was, I guess teetering back and forth in a platoon with Harrison Bader all season long. But when the games started to get important in September and October, he stepped up. He's clutch. Tyrone Taylor, he's clutch, man. Absolutely.
Extremely clutch, and just the way he plays defense, the how solid he is, the balls he gets to, the throws that he makes, it electrifies the entire team. And he is one of the few guys where he could be hitting under 200. And I'm like, yo, we need him out there. The team plays better with him. It's almost like Alvarez last season. The record is much better when he's actually in the game. Yeah, I do not want to see Mullins at all. Obviously, we know that Jose Siri is who knows wherever he is right now, but he's not with the club. He's
He doesn't have a
somewhere.
job right now.
Yeah, he's somewhere, trimming his eyebrows. And at the end of the day, I just need to see Tyrone Taylor in this lineup, and I need to see him patrolling center field for the rest of this season. And I don't know. We can't even think about next year. It's about getting it done right now. But Taylor, to me, I mean, he's just so obviously the choice. And when you look at that box score, the things that jump out to me, the first thing is the fact that, Juan Soto goes 0 for 5, which you almost never see. That last at bat was about as overmatched and just overall confused as you see. I mean, that half swing that he had there to get his strikeout in that fifth at bat. And when you have a team that is able to put up 8 runs when their best hitter is just, no contributions at all that night, that's got to make you feel good. And, in that fifth inning, the Mets had 3 balls hard. And that got me a little bit nervous because if you remember, early on in this season, it looks like my boy CP, he fell off and he left me with the box score up at least, so I'll be able to talk about that.
Can you hear
But
me? I'm
yeah,
here.
he's
Can you
back.
hear
He's
me?
back. That was quick. That was
Okay.
quick this time. That was good stuff. But no, I mean the thing is that when Soto has that type of game and you're still able to score 8 runs, and that fifth inning we hit 3 balls hard and we got absolutely nothing to show for it. And that gave me flashbacks of the first half, really 2/3 of this season, where we had the third hardest hard hit rate. Make sure I say that right. Third hardest hard hit rate in baseball, and yet it seemed like we had nothing to show for it. And after a while, it's like, okay, sooner or later it's going to start to, so we're going to find some holes and balls are going to start falling and whatnot. But then as the season goes on, it's like, how long can this go on for? Like, where is the regression to the mean? But we have that in the fifth today. We have Juan Soto 0 for 5, and we're still able to put up 8 runs. And obviously, we needed it tonight. With McLean in the top of the sixth coming out and only being able to get one out before, he gives up those home runs. And, we end up looking at an 8-5 game. And that's what we talked about, I think, last week at some point when we said we're going to need the offense attack on runs. We're going to need the pitching to be just good enough. Now the scary part happens where we have, Sproat, who, we have some confidence in him, but he's obviously still a guy with very little experience. He's going to be pitching in a very, very big spot. He's going to be in a matchup with a former Cy Young winner. And, I hope that these guys aren't Mets fans and know nothing about our history because the way I feel playing Miami in these last 3 games, I don't need them feeling any of that. It's just going to be an interesting series, man. But wait for us to win this series, take care of business, and hopefully the Reds can go play. And one cool thing about this is that the Brewers, because they have the entire series off to be able to keep some guys warm, they're going to have to, run some guys out there and play. I don't know exactly what their plans are, but they're not just going to, have guys sitting and, missing starts and not getting work and not getting some at bats when they're probably not going to play for a week as it is.
So I actually think the Brewers actually have to win a game in this series against the Reds for them to secure that first seed over the Phillies, because as it
Hmm.
stands right now, the Phillies are only 2 games back. So, and I do see my Wi-Fi cutting in and out. Hopefully it is
Come
stable.
on,
Can
bro.
you
You
hear me?
got you got to get plugged in. I can hear you, but you got to get plugged in, bro. You got to get plugged in. That was one of the best decisions I ever made was getting the actual plug in as opposed to Wi-Fi. It changes everything.
I know, man. It's been so hit or miss, and it's so
Bro, you got
unfortunate,
3,000
especially when it
followers,
takes
bro.
over.
It's time to plug in. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I got to upgrade over here. I got to upgrade my whole setup over here too, especially with this computer that I'm running over here. It's just too outdated, but life gets in the way. You know how it goes.
I hear you.
Listen, yeah, I think this whole weekend is just going to be absolutely crazy with this Mets series, and we could talk about it here just a second. You kind of alluded to it with the Brandon Sproat, not really knowing what we're going to be doing with the pitching outside of Brandon Sproat, the Manaya, Holmes combination. Do you trust in David Peterson to make another start for this team when it matters? Do you bring up a guy like Kodai Senga to pitch a couple of innings, even though he didn't look good in the bullpen? I don't know, man. He threw a live BP session. I'm not sure if you saw it. We were talking about it on the pregame yesterday, and they said that his velocity was down. He didn't look too good. But what other options do you have right now if you're the New York Mets? There's the you can go out there with an opener, maybe with a guy like Oscar Brazaban. I highly doubt the Mets do that, but this is something where it's going to be very interesting. I see people asking me confidence levels in the Mets going to Miami and taking at least two of three. I don't know, man. Let me ask you first and foremost. Like, I would love to have confidence in this team, and I do have confidence in this team. I think two of three is easily attainable, but it just gets us a little bit worried when we've been seeing what they've been doing against the Marlins. Don't even take me back to, when they collapsed against the Marlins, at back at Shea Stadium. That was the absolute worst. But, but they can do this. They can do this. I think, everyone knows that, but the offense has to replicate what they did in the two games here in Chicago, right? 8 runs today. It was how many runs they scored in game one? I even forget now. I mean,
12, I
whatever it
think.
was. Yeah, something crazy like that. The offense is going to have to show up and they're going to have to show out. And they're going to have to show out against really good, talented pitching, the Marlins best. And they've got some good, young, talented pitching over there with the guys that are throwing. So it's nobody, or I guess just to say it's nothing the Mets haven't seen. They've seen all three of these guys this season, but they have to go out there and swing the bats very competently because it's anyone's guess what type of starting pitching production this team is going to get. But then you take a look at the series, outside, the Reds are playing the Brewers. I think the Brewers definitely have something to play for, at least in game one. If they get that out of the way, we'll see how they approach games 2 and 3. And then the Diamondbacks, who are the Diamondbacks playing in the last series? I think they're playing the Padres, if I'm not mistaken.
That would make
Diamondbacks.
sense.
Yeah, I think it'd be the Diamondbacks. It's a divisional game. Yeah, they got the Diamondbacks. And let's take a look at the standings for the wild card because I'm trying to see. I don't think that there's any way that let's see here. The Padres are, I guess, the Chicago Cubs and the Padres are still playing for something too, because, the Padres are only separated from that first wild card seat as well from the Cubs by only 2 games as well. So, at the very minimum, at least for one game of each respective series, the teams that the Mets are going for to beat the Reds and Diamondbacks will have to at least try to take one, and you hope you can get one out of the way early and then see you win in your own series and really build that separation, because at that point when you get up two and that is the most ideal scenario, you only have to win the next one you're in.
There's no onlys, man.
You just win out and then
there's
yeah.
no, there's listen, man. At the end of the day, and that's the thing. This has nothing to do with my lifelong, just dealing and being a Mets fan. This has nothing to do with. It doesn't even have to do with us playing the Marlins in this final series. Really, it has to do with, and you know me, I am a very optimistic guy, but there's no way I could say I have a ton of confidence in this Mets team. I mean, the way that they have, played this entire season, the Jekyll and Hyde, the 3 different losing streaks of at least 7 games. Only one other team with 3 losing streaks of at least 7 games has ever made the postseason before, and that was the 2006 Cardinals. We know that team very well. And hey, man, we gotta listen. You never know what you're gonna get from this team. I really hope that I really do think that the offense is going to show up, but we've seen this team be red hot and then all of a sudden for a few games just totally disappear offensively and look horrible, look disinterested, and just, be out there with no type of game plan. We've seen this pitching staff look lights out. We've seen this bullpen be fantastic. We've seen this pitching staff look absolutely terrible in this bullpen, and the manager's management of it be totally incompetent. And I'm a Mendy guy. So I have zero confidence, but I also think that there's a good chance that we could go out there and rake and win 3 straight games. you just never know with this team. And usually I would come out here and I would say I'm pretty confident and I feel like we're going to get this done. This team has not inspired me like that this season. We're 5 games over 500. We've been extremely up and down, and we'll see. We'll see. But there's no way that I wouldn't bet anything on the Mets this year at all. And there's a lot of different scenarios, like you said. Go out there. I think that game one is so important. We've had a tough time
Yeah.
without Contra. We have to figure out a way to go out there and get to him early because once he gets going, it's tough. And then the pressure of the entire moment and everything that's going on just continues to weigh in and close in on these Mets. We know that the crowd is going to be in our favor, even though the Marlins are doing everything they can. Really, what the Marlins are doing right now is they're doing everything they possibly can to squeeze a little bit more money by throughout this last 3 games of the season as far as attendance and everything that comes with that revenue wise. And the Mets got
Yeah.
to go down there and they got to spoil the party and make it a party for all those transplants that are down there ready to see some Mets baseball.
I think it's like spot on. There's no reason to get your hopes up for this type of series, right? Like just be like I'm not going to tell anybody how to fan. This is how I'm going to approach this series. I'm going to be very even keel. I'm not going to expect too much from a team that hasn't shown us too much this season because there's no chance they should be 82 and 77. That's an absolute joke with the amount of talent that this team has. And I'm going to go out there and see who rises to the occasion and who doesn't. I'm talking about on an individual level, which will lead to the team level. And it starts with Brandon Sprout, unfortunately, and it's really a lot for David Stearns, Mendoza, and this entire fan base to ask for these guys to go out there and perform up, to peak level, sort of like Nolan McLean is doing right now, but across the board. And we saw Jonah Tong falter in the biggest start of his career so far in Chicago. Let's hope that Brandon Sproat has something left in the tank here, on the biggest stage and the biggest start of his own respective career here against a pretty damn good pitcher on the opposing side and Sandy Alcantara. And if you're wondering, Sandy hasn't gone less than 6 innings in a ball game since August 9th. It's been filled with six, 6 1/3, seven, 7 2/3. He is on an absolute tear right now. This could be a New York Mets showcase, a tryout, so to speak, for an offseason move if the Mets and David Stearns really want to change that philosophy and get an ace in the doors. That would be awesome. But that's the off season, and the Mets aren't getting into the playoffs with Sandy on the roster, so they have to go out there and beat him in a Marlins uniform. And I agree. I mean, it just says a lot and speaks a lot about the Marlins pushing back the Sandy start to face the Mets. I kind of like it. It provides a challenge for the Mets, and the Mets should take that personally. And I will say if the Mets find a way to take care of business, then they deserve it. If they go out there and sweep this series, that's a lot. One game at a time. Clearly, we're going to be focused about tomorrow. But if they go out there and sweep and they go 3 for 3, I'm going to say this team earned it. If they go out there and take 2 of 3 and get some outside help, yeah, we're all going to take it. But going into the playoffs, we're like, okay, this team really shouldn't be here. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, this Marlins
Come on,
team,
man. If they
though,
win 2 or 3, you'll be happy with that. If they win one, if they only win one and they somehow back in, that's one thing. If they win 2 or 3 and they get in, you'll be happy with that. Come
I
on.
I told everybody that I needed a sweep against the Washington Nationals to set this team up for success, and they went out there and lost 2 of 3 at their own ballpark. What a joke that is. What a joke. Like, come on.
It's the
Anywho,
2025 Mets, man. This is what we do.
listen, that's all part of the fun too, honestly. I mean, this team and this season has been fun in its own respective way about how frustrating things can actually get and how much we can tolerate as Mets fans at the end of the day. So, the one other thing that I wanted to talk about with this team as we go into the box score here, and by the way, if you are a part of the stream right now watching live here, as the clock strikes 11 o'clock on East Coast time, please do make sure to hit the thumbs up buttons and subscribe to the channel. Not only my channel, but also go to @independent Nick over on YouTube and make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. This is the box score that you can see from tonight. I know we didn't talk about it. Shout out to Brandon Nimmo as well, 3 for 4 day with an RBI as well. A very solid day. If this lineup, and by the way, Brandon Nimmo had a really good series this series, especially going back to game one. But if this lineup is getting this kind of contribution from Brandon Nimmo in the 4 or 5 spot, wherever Mendoza, I guess sets him at, then that is a really good sign for them to put up runs, especially with him, hitting gap to gap and those home runs too. What is he at home run wise? I know he's approaching 25, unless I'm underselling
I
him.
think he's
He's
got.
at
I think he might be over 25.
25. No,
He's
25
got
exactly
25
on
on
the
the
dot.
dot. Okay.
You can take that from Brandon Nimmo, man. You'll take that
Oh
from Brandon Nimmo all day
yeah, we'll
long.
definitely take that from him
Um,
all day.
but Acuna
See, there he goes, Acuna, and he can't even get the out
as Nick
before he's out.
said.
All right, there he's back. Okay, he's back. He's back.
As Nick said, I got to get plugged in. I'm slacking today. I'm slacking today. Were you before we get into the bullpen? I do want to talk about the bullpen here for a hot second, especially as it pertains to the name Ryan Helsley. Were you surprised to see Acuna start tonight in such a just big game?
No, I think that that everything that has to do is with McLean and his propensity to get ground balls, and therefore you want to make sure that you have the best defensive lineup out there behind him. And I thought that overall you see with the double play that's turned late in the game. Acuna is another one of those guys who the numbers might not tell you, but at the end of the game you look up and you say there was a couple plays that he made that were really big. Quite often they happen, playing second base or third base, or often it's when he's on the actual base paths when he gets out there and he's able to show you those wheels. I thought that was, I think that Mendy, as much as people have tried to kill him this year, I think he's had a very tough job when it comes to the different young guys, trying to always figure out how to play the hot hand. Then you got Vientos, who's shown so much promise, and then even showed you a little bit of, progress defensively. Remember, there was that whole thing about how he's working out with Francisco Lindor, and Vientos does have a very strong arm. I give him that. But if you have him playing over there at third enough, you're going to see him just totally not make some plays that big leaguers have to make. So I think when you throw in all those different things, the emergence of Brett Baty, but it's like, hey, Brett Baty is showing you that he's a major league player, but it's not like he's just made it absolutely clear that he's the third baseman of the future. I mean, he's still got an OPS in the low sevens. So it's been tough, man, for him to shuffle and to play the hot hand. I mean, listen, there was a chance. There was a point in this year where it looked like Mauricio was the third baseman of the future, and that was like, I mean, if you asked anybody, it was like, yo, he's gonna listen, man. These other guys are gonna have a hard time getting in because what this guy's showing us right now and what he has moving forward and the potential of his bat, them days is over. So it's not easy for a guy to continually always have to make these adjustments, play the hot hand. I think he's done a decent job of it this year. And, when it comes to that bullpen, which we're about to talk about, that's going to be a major factor in these last 3 games and then hopefully moving forward.
Let's get into the bullpen. Let's get into the bullpen because we're starting to see a couple of guys, and today was no different. Ryan Stanek coming in, electric. I mean, still getting to 3-2 counts more than I would like him to. Hopefully, he learns how to throw some more strikes more consistently, but he gets the job done nonetheless. Brooks Raley has
That's your
been
guy. That's always been your guy.
that's been my guy, man. I mean, I even from the offseason, I said, I know this guy's going to be injured. Please resign him. You can stash him for the second half, and he'll be golden for this team, especially if there are injuries that will happen, and they are inevitable, especially with the bullpen and this Mets organization, and that's exactly how it played out. He is, if you look at the lefty on lefty numbers for Brooks Raley, please, before you go to bed, go to Baseball Reference, look at the lefty on lefty. I don't have it in front of me, or so I would, give it to you all, but it's immaculate. It's spectacular. It's otherworldly. And the overall numbers as well, posting a 2.25 ERA, this season thus far is pretty respectable. He gives Mendoza another option late in the game, and he gives him a different look because then you also have Rogers, who has been also, all in all, a really good New York Met so far. And his brother actually, I guess he got out of a jam earlier.
Well, I got to ask you a question about him and his brother. Are
Yeah.
you aware of like the types of twins they are? And it's not your garden variety type of twin.
No, but they looked eerily similar, man. It's
So,
crazy.
but yeah, okay, but this is the thing. So they're opposite twins, where like his right side, like Tyler's right side, looks like his brother's left side, as opposed like they're not identical twins, and they and when they were conceived, they were a split second away from being conjoined twins.
Oh,
Isn't that
wait,
interesting?
are you making this up? Like,
I
where are you
swear to
getting
God,
this
I
from?
don't. Where did I pick this
Is
up?
this Gary Cohen on the broadcast, like spitting this
I
knowledge?
don't know if it was Gary. I don't know, man. I consume so much Mets shit, I can't keep it straight. But I know for a fact I heard somebody explain this the other day, and I can't remember who. It'll come to me at some point. But yes, yes, this is they are Oppo twins, and they were a split second away from being a from being conjoined twins.
That's a pretty interesting fact, honestly, and it's actually really cool because I think they were teammates for a little bit in San Francisco, is what the broadcast was saying as well. So, really, I mean, really talented guys out of the bullpen. They've been doing this for a pretty long time, and Rogers is definitely producing for this team moving forward. So, my point back to Brooks Raley is that it's a different look, especially when you have both these guys rolling before Edwin Diaz, and unfortunately, the Mets did have to use Edwin Diaz today. I was hoping that someone on the offense could come through to make it a 4 or 5 run game and make it a non-save situation, because the Mets did have Gregory Soto warming up alongside Edwin Diaz. If the Mets were able to tack on some more runs, they didn't. Edwin Diaz is used, but you know what? All hands on deck. If Edwin Diaz needs to appear in back-to-back days, if the Mets are in a situation to close out a ball game in Game 1 in Miami tomorrow, Edwin Diaz is going to be out there. At least I hope so. It is all hands on deck. Stanek, Raley, Rogers, Diaz, great production from those guys. You hope to mix in some other guys. I mean, we saw in Game 2, to the surprise of a lot of people, but to keep those arms fresh, we saw the tandem of Tong starting the game, and then both Mania and Clay Holmes getting into the game when it was already out of reach. And that had a lot of people, I guess, scratching their heads in this fan base. But I think Mendoza is trying to get them throwing, keep them fresh for this upcoming start in Miami. So that kind of makes sense, even though if that's a foreshadow with how they performed in Game 2 of this series for their upcoming performances in Miami, then we've got issues, especially with Clay Holmes. I mean, I don't want to talk on it. I don't want to harp on it. We're talking about a win in this game. Clay Holmes, nobody ever better see on this coaching staff and this fan base what PCA just did to the Mets in Game 2, going from second to home. That is like little league stuff, dude. That is ridiculous. That
Ridiculous.
infuriated me. Your first baseman practically beat you to home plate because you're sitting there in La La Land. That's absolutely absurd. So, anyways, back to my point. I had this back and forth with Rob about the utilization of Ryan Helsley, right? And we were talking about Ryan Helsley potentially being entrusted, or maybe not so much, in a situation. Let's say perhaps Edwin Diaz is not available, or maybe another setup situation if if Helsley is in consideration or not. I say, hell no, absolutely not. You do not gamble your season away relying on the guy that has not found it, has only shades, like, because he's shown shades, right?
You have to. There's zero chance that we get
Right.
into the playoffs and win multiple series without this guy becoming what we expect him to be. And I know that recently he has definitely shown us some signs. As a manager, you just have to know we don't have the arms to get there without him coming around. You just got to hope it happens. We don't have the luxury of just, burying him. Who's going to be the guy who's going to get those big? I mean, you got three guys really right now. Stanek has added himself back into the circle of trust. So you got like four
Yeah.
guys that you can trust.
But 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 do
With
you
our
think
starting arms, you're going to need more than that out of the bullpen.
but do you think because Game 2 was a very big indication of how much or how little Mendoza entrusts in Ryan Helsley. He threw him for 2 innings in a game that didn't matter at that point. Like, do you not think that that screams this guy's not touching a high leverage game or a situation for the rest of the season?
I think that's him trying to that's Mendoza continuing to try to get him right in not the highest of leverage situations. And we've seen him pitch better as of late. It hasn't all been perfect, but he has shown some signs for sure. And I just don't see a way that this team can get through these 3 games and then get through a series without him getting big outs. I just don't see it. I listen. I would
What's
love
your
to. I would love to have the luxury to go away from the guy. I just don't think we have that luxury, especially like I said with our starting pitching and how little they give us.
uh, two questions for you? My ranking of most trusted to least trusted bullpen arms goes as such. Top five, I think Edwin Diaz is number one. Probably gonna have to go Brooks Raley number two. I'll go Rogers number three. I'll go Stanek number four, and I'll go Brazabon number five. Unless I'm missing a name out there, I think that's my top five.
I totally agree, and I even agree with the order. I might
Second,
put Rogers and Rayleigh are about the same for
neck and
me.
neck. Yeah, okay. But for the most part, right? We have the same ideology there. Okay, second question. Preference. It's let's just say game three, game 162. Mets need to win, right? What are you doing? Are you having David Peterson start the game, or are you utilizing David Peterson in a mid-game scenario, or saving him for the later stages of the game and utilizing Brazabon as an opener?
Um, ooh, I have to pick between those two. You can't start Peterson again this season. Period. Point blank. I just
Yeah.
you can't. But also, Brazabon. Okay, if Brazabon is he's in a position where he's got the arm to be able to start game 162 as the opener, then I'm with it. But I think that you can't have him be the opener in games 1 or 2 because Brazabon is one of the few guys that we have that can give us a little bit of length in relief where he can come in and pitch 2.3, 3.2 innings in the middle of a game and keep us in it, as he did in the first game of this series. So I think that that's the better off situation. And again, a week ago, I was talking about how, hey, with Peterson in the overall season, I know he's had a tough second half. I know this guy has to be a part of your starting rotation if you make it to the playoffs. And at this point, I don't want to see him start again. I thought that not only his start, but also his comments in his second last start when he came out after the game, they were asking him, and he was saying, over the course of the year, everybody has starts. Like, no, 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 bud. This ain't time for that. And you have
Yeah.
certain guys who are leaders. Both of the Franciscos, those guys are leaders. Whether they're playing well or not, the way that they carry themselves, I've been so impressed with Lindor this last month or so with just the extra juice that he has, both in his, when in his play on the field, his celebration of what other guys are doing. And I just think, man, I thought that was very poor form by Peterson. He doesn't show enough fire for me, and he hasn't been able to get it done for over a third of the season at this point. He cannot start. I do think that in a relief situation, kind of long relief, and then obviously last year in the playoffs in relief, he was fantastic at certain points, closed out that series against Milwaukee. So who knows, man? But right now, I'm not confident seeing him starting for sure.
I don't envy Mendoza and the decision making that he's going to have to
It's gonna be
utilize
nuts.
and in this series, man. You know what? But though I bring up Brazabon as an option because in the couple of times that we've seen Brazabon as an opener this season, he's done fairly well. I mean, we've seen it a handful of times. I want to say maybe like three times that I can remember, maybe a fourth if I'm just my memory isn't serving me correct. But I think that he's done fairly well. That's his former team, obviously, as well. I'm sure he knows how to pitch in that ballpark. Some of those guys, strengths, weaknesses, and maybe vice versa. With those guys knowing him, but yeah, I don't know, man. David Peterson. If you're telling me it's a do or die situation, and you have to make the decision if David Peterson's starting on the mound for you against the Marlins, every bone in my body wants to say yes, but my mind, like I just can't. I just have to say no. And I've been saying this for the past couple of weeks, and everybody's like, he'll be fine. He's gonna be fine. This is just one start. This is skewed. It's not. It's been a lot. The majority of the second half, and he's now approaching. He's actually blown past an uncharted territory of innings, total innings in his career this season so far. And you can't help but fatigue and think fatigue is a factor in all of this. So, yeah, man, that's what I have to say about that. It's going to be interesting, but game one comes first. Brandon Sproat, Sandy Alcantara. The offense has to show up. Every game is a must win unless the Reds decide to lose and the Diamondbacks decide to lose again as well. And we will be also scoreboard watching because you just have to at this point. Don't punt a game like you did in game two against Chicago. That's my only thing. And go out there and play sound, fundamental, clean baseball. Other thing that we didn't talk about in the name that we just mentioned, Alvarez. This guy is a warrior, and his bat is coming alive. Nick, remember we were having the conversation surrounding who should start, Luis Torrens or Francisco Alvarez? And I was like, I gotta go Francisco Alvarez. I know the defense with Torrens is great. Is there a world where I wish maybe they'd think about, DHing Alvarez? Yes, but they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna do it. Unfortunately, I don't
Game
think
seven of the World Series. If he's got a red hot bat and Torrens, I mean, we know what Torrens is defensively. Yeah, it's possible.
it's possible. I just don't see it happening this series or at any point
No,
early on
no,
in
it's
the
not going to happen
playoffs.
anytime soon. No.
But he's been a warrior with all the injuries that he's had to come back from. The bat that he's swinging right now, he had a fantastic series against the Chicago Cubs with a couple of long balls, the game-winning home run in game one of that series as well. And also something that we didn't talk about from the Chicago Cubs today is that this game could have been a lot, of a bigger margin of a win for the Mets because they were making some web gem plays out there
Jesus.
behind
Yo.
Imanaga. Pete Crow Armstrong, like the third baseman Dansby, a couple plays too. That's unbelievable. And I was just sitting there scratching my head. It's like these Mets hitters have to be frustrated seeing that stuff. But you know what? That is important because it's a mirror image of when the Mets play good defense and sound defense behind their pitchers. More often than not, they win ball games if they're able to put up 6, 7, 8 runs. So that's the recipe for success is the fundamentals. We saw it in the National Series. Now we're going to play an inferior opponent, which is what the Marlins are. They're a lot better than what people give them credit for. I will say that they're a sneaky, dangerous team. They're a young and upcoming team. I'll say that and I'll give them the credit. But they are an inferior team, just like the Nationals were, right? They are. And the Mets went error for error with the Washington Nationals to help set up that series loss. If they intend to do that in Miami, they're going home. They're not making the playoffs. I can guarantee you that. Fundamental defense is what I want to see, and the rest of the game should take care of itself. At least I hope so. So, any final thoughts here as we close out this post game stream?
I just thought that overall today, man, we had a lot of times where this game could have went the other way, and we stepped up in the big moments. I loved seeing, McLean's fire after he struck out PCA. That was he had that strikeout there. He had another play later on in the game that where he hit a ball that almost got out, late. That was in the bottom of the ninth. Against Diaz, that ball is all the way to the wall. He thought he got that one, and so many times we've seen this. Going into this series, you're like, man, PCA against us. I could see him making some huge plays, and he made some huge plays in the field. But overall, we were able to step up in the biggest moments. Now it's going to come down to what this pitching staff gives us in these last three games. It's going to be an absolute patchwork job that's going to have to be done by Mania to get us to the postseason. Guys are going to have to step up. We're going to need those big innings. We're going to need the bats to do their thing. Alvarez, like you said, has been getting it done. He's, been playing some really good defense and throwing the ball as well. Nobody throws the ball like Torrens. I never seen him catch or throw the ball like Torrens. Seriously. But hey, man, it's like I said, I've never gone into a series or an end of a season or potential playoffs and had less of a feel either way about what a team can be. I honestly could see this team catching fire, and all you need is a couple arms to get hot, and all of a sudden, now I see this team being a team that nobody wants to play with a dominant bullpen and a great lineup, and we could win a World Series. I could also see us like losing these next 3 games, and if that happened, I would be devastated. I'd be really upset, but I wouldn't be like, man, I cannot believe that happened. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be.
Mhm.
With this team, you just never know. And we'll find out starting tomorrow who's going to show up, Jekyll or Hyde.
Agreed. I mean, that's a perfect cap on this stream. And the last thing that I do have to say about this question here from Thor, just for everybody's awareness, is that Alvarez, according to Mendoza, was not in the game today, did not start because he did experience some lower body cramping towards the tail end of yesterday's game. So that's why he was not in the lineup. And you didn't see him today. But the Mets still get the win. There's no indication that this is a serious problem for Alvarez moving forward. So I would have to imagine, and I am expecting that Alvarez will be your starting catcher tomorrow with Brandon Sproat.
Do you think he
Although,
starts all 3 games, especially with Friday, Saturday being night game, day game?
you know what? I was just gonna say, it seems like these young pitchers have a little bit of a better time with the Luis Torrens dynamic, right? And the battery. Tong, this is especially Tong, right? When you take a look, I think the his start against the Padres was with Luis Torrens behind the plate. Um, so maybe McLean today with Luis Torrens type thing. Um, so maybe tomorrow I'll backtrack and say maybe tomorrow is the one game that I could see Torrens getting the start and Alvarez coming in as a pinch hitter, but he's gonna at least be starting 2 of the 3 games. Do I expect him to start
Okay.
all 3? I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah, I think
I'm
Torrens
with you.
is one.
Like, hey, if he comes out tomorrow and he has some wild offensive game, then maybe on Saturday you go ahead and you make him the DH. If his bat is that hot. But yeah, I mean, you're not gonna ask the guy to go night game, day game, day game. So that's probably not gonna happen. So I think that it made sense to get Terens in there tonight. It's not like it's a huge drop off, and hopefully Alvarez can, stay out of the way. There's those inside fastballs around chest high.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a good point by Ricardo too, because I think it was Laura Albanese, Mets reporter, was reporting that going into tonight's game, I think somewhere around 7 innings would have been the cutoff and the threshold for the Mets to lose the rookie status on Nolan McLean's contract. And since he only went 5 1/3 in this start, he is still going to be considered a rookie starting next season. So they will save that. If you care about that, if anyone cares about that. So,
No way the Mets
uh,
did that on purpose. If he was cruising and had 75 pitches through 6 innings, he would have went out there for the seventh.
oh, for sure. I do think that there's another argument to be had about him not coming up earlier on in the season rather than when he did, and the Mets kind of playing that game. But I think if it came down to it tonight, they were going to just have him cruise. And because this fan base, I know Rob in particular, would have been very upset. They took him out and he was cruising because they have been doing that, man. They have been doing that with, Sproat and Tong before when he was pitching against the Padres. They've been doing that. And I'm curious how they're going to approach tomorrow with Brandon Sproat because his first start against the Reds was 88 pitches and then he's gone around 70, 72 pitches in his I guess previous 2 starts as well. So I'm very curious with the taxed bullpen or knowing that the bullpen has been doing well in this Cubs series, do you stick to that game plan with Brandon Sproat and entrust in the bullpen? I don't know. That's something we'll find out tomorrow. What do you think about that, real quick?
I thought that Sproat, when he got pulled out before in those previous 2 games, it was a situation where you want to get him out on a good note, and we were up by a bunch. I think if the game is close and he is, in there battling and giving us the best chance to win, that he empties the tank. I don't think that Mendoza would have any type of hesitation of letting him pitch, into the 90s and even low 100s.
Yeah. Well, actually, the last start that he had was against the Nationals. No, and that's when he kind of was the defense with Jose Siri. That's the start Jose Siri really dropped that fly ball. He should have gotten out of that inning. He gave up 4 earned runs in the first couple of innings. That was the Brandon Sproat start. So okay. That makes a little bit more sense. He was kind of iffy, I guess, in that start. But anyways, that's besides the point. Brandon Sproat, get some rest, buddy. You've got a really big start ahead of you. It's going to be the biggest in your career, and it's going to be against a very pesky lineup that is looking to end the season and the Mets season. So, with that, I appreciate everyone that has been a part of this post game stream tonight. A huge, monumental, and much needed series win in Chicago against a playoff team and a World Series contender. And we will see what the Mets are made of in this final series, and it will dictate whether we will see a 2025 potential postseason run for the 2025 Mets or not. And with that, please make sure to hit those thumbs up buttons. If you haven't done so already, tell your friends, tell your family. If they're Mets fans, come subscribe to the channel. But also, don't only subscribe to my channel, go subscribe over to Nick's channel over on YouTube as well. I appreciate it, everybody. And I appreciate you as well, Nick. Until next time, probably the pregame and most likely the postgame tomorrow as well. We will be live on the channel. Hit the notifications buttons, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Let's go, Mets.